Hello, and welcome to the OutMatch webinar, Getting Started with Assessments. This training webinar focuses on what you need to know as the hiring manager or a first-time user of OutMatch assessments. During today's presentation, we'll be sharing an overview of assessments, the purposes they serve, and some best practices across industries. You can expect this webinar to last approximately 30 minutes. Okay, let's get started. Before we jump into assessments, we first want to share with you a little background about who OutMatch is and the type of work we do for clients like you. OutMatch partners with clients to help them build winning teams by taking a data-driven approach to talent selection and development at all levels of an organization. We combine predictive technology and world-class talent experts to bring confidence and clarity to the selection process. We have an integrated approach to matching the right people with the right job through identifying, developing, and measuring a candidate's or employee's potential for success. We do this by first defining job success, specifically the competencies needed for success on the job. Once defined, OutMatch then helps you assess your candidates, whether that includes new hires or existing employees. At the time of interview, OutMatch delivers competency-based scoreable interview guides, so you can interview for past behavior. The next step is online reference checking to collect detailed, candid feedback from past employers and colleagues quickly and easily. Once a candidate is hired, employee development is crucial to your company's success. Using OutMatch, you can identify competency strengths and gaps, as well as identify those with potential for future roles in your organization. Throughout this entire process, our goal is to help you gain a deeper understanding of candidates and employees by helping you identify and measure those areas that are most predictive of success. So you may be wondering, who uses OutMatch assessments? Well, as you can see from the slide, there are quite a few. OutMatch is proud to partner with a variety of clients across industries to provide talent management solutions. We primarily assist large, decentralized organizations with high-volume hiring needs in hospitality, restaurant, retail, and large sales teams. For these clients, some of the improved outcomes include improving the candidate experience, shortening time to hire, reducing employee turnover and increasing employee retention, boosting customer satisfaction, building the employment brand, and above all, helping them grow revenue and profitability. These clients were encountering a variety of business problems, and through their partnership with OutMatch, have begun to find solutions that help them hire and develop better employees. So you may be thinking about now, this is great that OutMatch can help us hire better, but hiring is already a really tough process, and is an assessment really the best solution? The truth is you're right, hiring is hard, and consistently hiring the right person is even more difficult. So let's think of it in another way. So what's so hard about it? Why is consistently hiring the right person so difficult? Well, for one thing, the right talent is relatively rare. First of all, the odds are not in your favor. The odds of finding the right talent are much worse than flipping a coin. And it's really more like finding the sole ace in a deck of jokers. And let's not forget those jokers are expensive. They cost the organization in terms of loss of productivity, turnover, team morale, lost customers, and manager time spent training. But when you do, finding the ace is so valuable. They perform better from the start, are easier to train and manage, increase customer satisfaction, and stay with the organization. By adding assessments to your process, our goal is to help you find that ace more often. Now remember, selection tools aren't foolproof, but they do increase your chances of finding the right candidate by providing a data-driven approach to talent selection. There are many types of selection tools available, such as assessments, interviews, and reference checking. These data-driven tools provide an objective approach to hiring decisions. Selection tools also have many benefits, such as decreasing the time to hire and adding efficiency to the process. They also add data to the interview and evaluation process, as well as ensure the hiring manager is focusing their time with the right candidates. Furthermore, when you hire better candidates, you then will begin to see other benefits, such as a reduction in turnover and improved quality of hire. While assessments do provide objective data for selection decisions, hiring managers will often have many concerns until they become familiar with assessments as a data-driven tool in the hiring process. Here, I want to debunk some of the most common hiring manager concerns. Myth number 1, the assessment and the organization will screen out good candidates. The assessment is actually designed to optimize person-job fit based upon innate characteristics. That being said, no assessment is perfect, and the assessment may occasionally screen out good candidates. However, more often than not, it will screen out those candidates who do not have the right innate fit for the job and who would be difficult to train. The goal of the assessment is to prioritize which candidates to focus on, while recognizing it is just one voice in the process. Other pieces of data should be taken into consideration when making hiring decisions. Myth number 2. Having an assessment will take the hiring decision away from the hiring managers. Research shows unconscious bias often adds subjectivity to the hiring process, and assessments actually provide an objective point of view. Assessments are meant to aid the judgment of the hiring manager and help prioritize the best candidates, not take the decision away from the hiring managers. Myth number 3. Candidates will not respond in an honest fashion to the assessment. Our data suggests that candidates are typically pretty honest on the assessments. The assessment will typically have a flag that will highlight those cases where we are concerned the candidate was faking, and as a hiring manager, you should always follow up on areas of concern in the interview process. Myth number 4. Candidates will hate taking the assessment and it will add too much time to the application process. Assessments have actually become a common aspect of the hiring process for candidates. Survey data suggests that candidates perceive employers who use assessments to have a more rigorous and thoughtful selection process. Furthermore, we see an average of 90% of candidates complete the assessment. In terms of time it adds, hourly assessments typically take between 10 to 15 minutes to complete, and management assessments take 35 to 40 minutes to complete. Until now, you've heard about the rigor and many benefits that assessments can bring to your hiring process. Many clients come to us with a variety of business problems, and assessments provide a common solution. As a client of OutMatch, we're invested in your success. So next I want to focus on how you can be our next success story and experience the same benefits our other clients do. This means sharing with you some best practices to guide a strong rollout strategy, successful assessment adoption, and ultimately build a strong partnership. Many things drive success when it comes to adopting a new assessment. In our experience at the organizational level, the 3 biggest things to focus on are education, process, and change management. For education, there are 3 main drivers to focus on. First, it's important to recognize there will be a ramp-up period, and that is normal. Taking the time to become familiar with and learn the new tool now will be critical to its long-term success and adoption. Second, provide adequate support and training both prior to and after the rollout. Lack of adequate training or resources in the field will prohibit adoption. Third, teach users how to utilize the data. Help them understand what the results mean and how to best apply that to the interview. And finally, educate candidates and internal users on the benefits. Set expectations with candidates and encourage internal users to share success stories often to aid in adoption. The second thing to focus on is process when it comes to adoption success. There are 3 key drivers to consider. First, attach the new process to solid processes that are being leveraged across the organization. If you attach the new process to broken processes or even an applicant tracking system that is not widely leveraged, you're really setting yourself up for failure. Second, build strong operational support by showcasing the benefits of the new tool to the organization and also at the individual level. Any lack of operational support around the new tool will prevent it from becoming successful. And finally, define where the assessment fits in the process. Outline what the new process will look like so that all users are familiar and understand its importance. The third and final driver is change management. It's important to first identify who your internal champions will be for the new assessments. These people will serve as your ambassadors for change in addition to hiring managers, HR team members, or talent acquisition recruiting members who will also be championing the change. Second, you should create opportunities for executive support to be demonstrated publicly and early. Any lack of leadership support showing that the leadership is not championing the change or the new process will prohibit it from moving forward. Next, it's important to involve key stakeholders in the rollout and the training. If anyone feels a lack of control or that they're not being involved in the decision process or early planning phases, could cause roadblocks for you down the road. And finally, it's important to anticipate potential concerns early and gain buy-in well before implementation. Being familiar and aware of any resistance to change will help you ensure the adoption is successful when the time comes. The final piece to consider for adoption success is the feedback loop with end users. If you are an end user, it's up to you to provide feedback
now
on
that
the
we've
process
outlined what matters
and the
from a
impact
big picture
of the new
point of
selection
view
tools.
when it comes to
Closing
adoption
this loop
success,
and the
let's dig
circulating
in a little
feedback
deeper on each of
back
these
to
drivers
education
and
will
understand how they
ensure
relate to
the
hiring managers
assessments
and
are
recruiters
successfully
and
adopted
considerations for each.
by the organization.
The successful adoption and implementation of assessments begins with education for hiring managers, recruiters, and candidates. Education includes providing training on both how to understand all the data the assessment can provide, as well as how to utilize that data for both the interview and evaluation. Education for the hiring manager may include some of the following examples. First, understanding how to leverage the assessment tools. This includes onboarding resources once someone has been hired, and even management and coaching suggestions for specific assessments. Next, understanding what data is provided in the results, and furthermore, how to interpret those results to utilize in the interview is important. Finally, understanding the benefits of the assessment to both the organization and the candidate is important. For organizations, assessments assist in helping companies weed through large applicant pools and really focus on candidates best suited for the role. Assessments also allow for hiring managers to gain deeper insight into candidates prior to the interview and also to easily compare across candidates using the objective data. For the candidate, assessments provide transparency and consistency to the hiring process and also provide that realistic job preview for the candidate so they know what to expect. For recruiters, education should include things such as helping each stakeholder understand their role in the implementation and rollout of the assessment. Additionally, they will need to provide flexible and ongoing training opportunities. Some users will be faster to adopt than others, so offering training opportunities on an ongoing basis will be critical. Finally, for candidates, education means setting expectations and explaining benefits early in the process. While we touched on some of these as they relate to the hiring manager, for candidates, assessments will reduce their time to hire as well, ensure a consistent and fair process, provide a chance to learn about the company culture, job, and work environment, and overall streamline the hiring process. Defining and communicating the process to hiring managers and recruiters is the second key driver to successful assessment adoption. In our experience, the most successful clients are the ones with HR, talent acquisition, and hiring managers teams that communicate clearly and frequently. All groups should be included in key decisions throughout the implementation process to ensure alignment before anything is finalized. For the hiring manager, it's important to outline what the external and internal processes will look like. What are the similarities and differences in both processes so that he or she is prepared for both types of candidates? Additionally, being familiar with when assessment data will be made available is important. This includes results which allow hiring managers to compare candidates objectively, as well as understanding candidate-specific interview questions. For recruiters, they are responsible for defining and communicating the process clearly for both these internal and external hires. They should outline the steps and phases for each and ensure questions are being answered in a timely fashion. Additionally, recruiters should define how assessments fit into the overall hiring process workflow, explaining to hiring managers how they connect to existing selection or HRIS tools, and build operational support and buy-in from each of the key stakeholder groups. The final driver for assessment adoption success is around change management. I'm sure many of you have seen what both successful and unsuccessful change management looks like and know a few tricks of the trade. Here are a few things we would recommend you keep in mind as you move forward with your implementation of new assessment. For the hiring manager, you should get involved as early as possible in the adoption process. Don't wait until everything has been rolled out. I would encourage you to get involved early so you can pass along any key suggestions for improvement in the process or even training materials. Think about submitting an FAQ that could be used to help other users. Finally, work on identifying internal experts as go-to resources to champion the changes along the way and circulate feedback through the appropriate channels. For the recruiter, it's important that they gain buy-in from key stakeholders early by communicating the benefits of the assessments and debunking any myths. Secondly, be prepared for pushback. People are often resistant to change, so identify who your change agents are to help anticipate concerns and help you be proactive with solutions. Remember, being receptive to feedback will go a long way in ensuring buy-in, so request it frequently and be open to making changes accordingly. As your partner, OutMatch wants this entire process to be as painless as possible, so don't hesitate to reach out with specific feedback or changes, and we're happy to try and help. Finally, celebrate successes along the way. Remember, it is a process to get assessments fully adopted, but once they are, it will be hard to imagine doing things the old way, and any progress toward the new standard should be celebrated. These three key drivers, education, process, and change management, would not be complete without a feedback loop for end users. So the final step of the process is understanding how to circulate any feedback received back into the process. While some of this information may seem intuitive, we think it is important to keep a few tips in mind as you begin receiving feedback on the assessment and your process changes. First, remember to listen to all feedback received. Sometimes you may hear redundancies across individuals or things that you simply won't be able to do anything with. But take it all in, ask clarifying questions, and decide later what you want to do with that feedback. Second, ask for feedback early and often. Involve your key stakeholders early in the process so they can be part of the build. This should help minimize changes down the road. Third, set up an appropriate forum to receive feedback from the larger group. By allowing more than a select few people to be involved, other folks will begin to feel invested in the new product and take an interest in making it successful. And finally, decide what you want to do with the feedback once
While
it's
adequate
received.
education,
Some suggestions may be good, others may seem impractical,
management initiatives
but it's important that you
are all
communicate your
important to the
decision
successful
regardless
adoption
back
of an
to whomever
assessment
provided
internally
the
within an
initial feedback.
organization.
If you
There's
do
some other
receive
best
feedback you think
practices
is
I want to share
actionable,
next
remember to circle
that
back
touch
with
on
those
how
users
assessments
and
impact
educate
candidates
them on the
as
change
well
in the
as
process
interviewers.
and ensure there's a successful change management plan in place. How does having a more efficient selection process influence the candidate experience? While I know we touched on this briefly earlier, Here, we want to dive a little deeper into how assessments can actually positively influence the candidate experience. First and foremost, expectation setting with the candidate should be conveyed early in the process. Things such as time commitment and where they physically take the assessment are important. We want to ensure candidates plan accordingly and have an appropriate environment. Also, explain the purpose of the assessment, job fit. It's important the candidate is honest in their responses. We want them to be in a job where they will excel and be satisfied. It's also important to give candidates a timeline for next steps and when they can expect to hear back from someone, regardless of the decision. Finally, close the assessment loop with candidates once they are hired by requesting feedback on the assessment experience during onboarding. This will help you get a better understanding of how candidates are perceiving the assessment and if any immediate changes should be considered going forward. One of the biggest benefits of using assessments is the objective data they provide to the hiring process. However, keep in mind that this objective data should not rule out the judgment a hiring manager can provide. When considering assessment results, remember it is just one data point in the overall candidate evaluation. It's important to sometimes take a step back and look at the complete candidate picture, past work experiences, references, and the assessment. Based on all that information, you should then make a holistic judgment. You should also recognize there will be individual differences across candidates, but the benchmark or standard that has been set for your role is the same. Rely on the assessment to help keep you focused on the requirements of the job and how a candidate fits, rather than looking at a candidate and determining which job they may be a fit for. Finally, familiarize yourself with the report sections. Remember the assessment is doing the interpretation for you and simply highlighting what you should pay the most attention to. Rely on the assessments to provide those insights on strengths and opportunity areas and where you should focus your interview questions and probes to get the most out of the interview. The final piece to consider in ensuring successful assessment adoption is the interview. Facilitating great interviews is something that requires training and investment from hiring managers, HR, and the recruiting team. Here are a few things to keep in mind to ensure your interview is useful for both the interviewer and the candidate. First, as the interviewer, ensure you are trained on behavioral interviewing techniques. These ensure consistency in the process across interviewers and keeps the focus on job-relevant questions. Next, make use of structured behavioral-based interview questions where you ask candidates for examples of past behavior. Remember, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior, so understanding what a candidate will do rather than what they should do is important. Finally, use the personality-based interview probes provided in the assessment report. These probes are custom to the candidate's personality results and will allow you as the interviewer to focus on areas of concern rather than wasting time on areas of strength, which they may have already showcased. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's webinar. We hope you found the session helpful as you begin to think about implementation and adoption of a new assessment. As a client of OutMatch, we want to partner with you to ensure assessments are an asset to your selection process. And by considering what was discussed today, I think you are already headed down the right path. If you have additional questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to your internal HR sponsor. Thanks again.